Ladies and gentlemen, I do believe it is time for me to introduce our panelists. Our Maritime Dialogue. This will be a platform for government leaders as well as key international bodies to come together to share their perspectives and to propose ways in which states can work together. All of this is to overcome challenges and capture new opportunities. I do believe we are set and ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our moderator and panelists. First, our moderator, Associate Professor Simon Tay, who is from the Faculty of Law of the National University of Singapore. He is also the chairman of the Singapore Institute of International Affairs. Please welcome Prof. Tay. Our panelists, Dr. Volker Wissing, the Federal Minister of Digital Affairs and Transport of Germany. Mr. Evan Tronstad Sakkerbakken, Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Fisheries, Norway. Mr. Francis Zachariah, Secretary General of the International Association of Marine Aids to Navigation and Lighthouse Authorities. Welcome, gentlemen, and Prof. Tay. Whenever you're ready, the stage is all yours.
Well, good morning, Minister, Your Excellencies, SMS, Amy Kor. Ladies and gentlemen, we really should begin with very important points that my minister, Mr. Chee Hong Tat, has made. We have come through a time where we've seen great disruptions. The pandemic, truly phenomenal, unexpected, completely disruptive. But even now, the world we have emerged into is not short of tension points that reflect back on the sea that connects us. Just as the maritime industry was so important for globalization, it now feels the impacts about questions about globalization. And these are, of course, very significantly what's happening in the Middle East, and many ships are rerouting across Africa rather than through the Suez and Red Sea. We see this more into the future as well, with potential coming questions about the maritime industry in terms of its impact on climate change, an issue that must be tackled. We see this also, the responsibility reflected in the possibilities of using digital means to have more efficient trade, to use the seas and shipping in a much more efficient way. I would think that my minister has given a very substantive speech about what Singapore is doing, hopes to do as a hub, as part of a connected world. But it's equally important, perhaps even more important, to listen to our other stakeholders and partners. I'm therefore very delighted and honored to be given the chance to moderate this panel. We have really three speakers who can share different perspectives. To my immediate left is the Federal Minister from Germany in charge of both transport and digital affairs, Dr. Volker Wissing. Next to him is the State Secretary from Norway, Mr. Evan Tronstad Sakkerbakken, which I hope I got right, the Ministry of Fisheries and Ocean Policy. And third, to my extreme left, and not least, is Secretary General Francis Zachariah, who will share with us views about a very important stakeholder in the resilience and safety of the shipping lines and trade routes that connect us. There are, as I said, many historical lessons about the need to have resilience, the need to have fortitude as endeavor as the minister goes ahead. The seas, in this sense, have never been calm. They are choppy today as in the past. So in this panel, may I just have a few simple suggestions? I would like each of our panelists to begin with a short outline of their key thoughts, the key take-homes that we want us to have. And then after that, we'll go into a period of questions and their responses. I will start us off, and there are already some questions coming into the Slido. So if I may, I will first start with our Minister from Germany, Dr. Volker, please.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome, Professor Tay. Dear honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, resilience, digitalization, and decarbonization, these three goals are closely linked. For example, I am convinced that digitalization will play a key part in making maritime transport routes more resilient and sustainable. We are already seeing evidence of this. Throughout the shipping sector, digitalization and efficiency are rising. Modern ships are improving sustainability and safety. As a result, the shipping sector is cleaner, greener, more reliable and resilient overall. However, it is also clear that the technical challenges are immense. For example, when it comes to safely rolling out autonomous technologies in shipping. It is vital that the different systems are compatible and secure. That is why Germany is actively involved in developing international regulations, both at the International Maritime Organization, IMO, and at EU level. To decarbonize the shipping sector, we now urgently must design the measures to implement the GHG strategy we adopted last summer so that we can actually reach its goals. We are also working to improve the economic framework, maintain and extend shipping lanes where necessary, which will make the supply chains more resilient overall. And after all, there can be no doubt that in our logistics and transport, workers are essential. We need capable, reliable transport by water. Both the COVID-19 pandemic and current events such as the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine or the situation in the Red Sea have brought this home to us. This goes to show how important it is that we protect ourselves against these disruptions and do so internationally. Given the very close bonds maritime trade has built between our economies, it is imperative that we tackle the current challenges together. And I'm looking forward to the talks with you and all that we can push forward together to make our logistic chains and all the international maritime sector more resilient. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. The call for cooperation, the call for international cooperation is fundamental to the challenges we face, and we'll look forward to more comments and points in the Q&A. May I turn next to our State Secretary from Norway, Mr. Evan, please.
I do agree with what Mr. Wissing said here. And I think one key word, as also was mentioned by Mr. Chi, is collaboration. We need collaboration on getting the same frameworks, especially in digitalizations, and also to get the key marks when you, for example, are going to measure how much fuel are the ships using and how can you have a common solution in how you can reduce the fuel consumption on different transports. And also, I think collaboration in how to create the framework for how you can use the digitalizations so that you can communicate freely from the different parts of the stakeholders in the businesses. And also collaboration in how we are going to do the recruitment. Because if you see it, to have the resilience, you also need the recruitment of workers. And one key part, one important part there for Norway is to have more gender equality in recruitment to the maritime sector. So yes, we'll leave it there.
A very good point about collaboration needing to be across different platforms, from measurement to frameworks and even to recruitment of workers. I like the point particularly about the measurement, because otherwise, in terms of the carbon footprint, we might be arguing until different standards, different ways of measuring. The third speaker, as I mentioned, is Secretary General Zachariah. Secretary General Zachariah, can I just first start by congratulating you on the progress towards ILA becoming part of an international being recognized as an international organization. Would you like to share some opening comments, Secretary General?
Thank you very much, Simon. If I look at this from the perspective of IALA, we focus on developing and harmonizing marine aid navigation worldwide. And the IALA membership, which is completely global, contributes towards reduction of emission and avoid disruption from the maritime industry by providing efficient routing measures, which of course minimize voyage distances and time, supporting just-in-time arrival strategies, and make navigation safer. I think our greatest contribution here is the reduction of the environmental impact of shipping caused by collisions and groundings, as we saw in the Suez Channel. So this is basically how we do it, and our mandate of our members is given to them through national legislation as part of the coastal state implementation of SOLAS, Chapter 5, Regulation 12 and 13, that deals with marine aid navigation and VTS. And those two things are crucial for maritime safety around the world.
Thank you for that voice about safety, and even as we search for more efficiency, in that sense, not cutting corners. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I thought that's my impression of what you were saying. Let me turn to some of the questions, both that have been prepared beforehand, as well as they're coming to the Slido. Gentlemen, while we emphasize the need for cooperation and resilience, I think the questions are coming to more specific areas. In particular, a number of the questions have come up about the green movement to decarbonize the maritime industry, requiring the changes in fuel, in engines, and even the handling of these fuels and engines. Could we start there, some general thinking about how you see decarbonization as part of the response of the industry and policies of your government? Could I start with the Minister, please?
Honestly, decarbonization is one of the key issues for all of us, and to be climate neutral in 2050, for us in Germany, we want to be climate neutral in 2045. It is crucial that we now make a strong and a fast progress in using alternative fuels for shipping. And therefore, we need a common international approach. IMO plays a key role in this issue, and I think the international cooperation is very important, and there's no alternative to the use of new fuels. And the progress in CO2 reduction on the maritime sector can also be achieved by the use of digitalization, which brings us more efficiency, optimizing routes and so on. And this is why I'm convinced that digitalization and decarbonization are perfectly going together.
I see the point that the two of the three themes today in this panel, digitalization and decarbonization, are very much twinned, that the efficiencies from the digital gains might also assist in using less fuel, no matter what fuel we're using. And then on top of that, the switch to green fuels, which I guess is still a pending question, is another step. Would anyone like to contribute on this point about how we see the journey to decarbonization?
Well, I'm first of all proud to say that the Norwegian maritime industry is considered to be in forefront of the development of low and zero emission maritime solutions. And the continued development and use of new technology is crucial to achieve our climate targets. But there's also, we need a collaboration to see how we can defend, but also as government, how we design our framework and what we have in our public tenders when we are, for example, like in the Norwegian transport section, we have the zero emission ferries. And that's a case of that's a result of the public tenders where we have put the measures and how can we develop the zero emission segment for for example, the ferries. We both have electrical ferries and hydrogen ferries now taken in use. But also, as mentioned, a new technology, it does not come without a risk. It will have implications for issues, as we discussed, such as safety, cybersecurity, and required skills, and also, as I mentioned earlier, the competences. And in addition, a key challenge is the uncertainties and cost related to investing in the new technology. Therefore, I also think that collaboration is very important to reduce the costs in the transition for the green solutions in the maritime sector.
Secretary General, would you add?
Yes, I think decarbonization and digitalization has become interdependent twins here lately. I mean, decarbonization is driving digitalization, and digitalization is helping decarbonization. And we must face that 2050 is approaching very, very fast. And as the Minister mentioned in his excellent welcoming speech, there are many measures to help decarbonize the maritime industry. The Minister mentioned vessel design, power assistance, sail, alternative fuels that can solve 100% of it. But we have the digital measures, that is route optimization, just-in-time arrival. Just-in-time arrival can save 9% of all the fuel used in the whole world. We have autonomous navigation systems and energy management. And it's suggested that all these digital solutions can save 38% of all the fuel in the shipping sector, which is an amazing amount. So we need to focus on these digital solutions, and that's what really concerns IALA and our technical committees. And we are especially looking at the coastal states' infrastructure to support the shipping with all the needs they need for sharing digital information. So this is really important, I think.
Thank you. State Secretary.
Yes, I mentioned collaboration, but Norway is working for a global emission pricing, and we also integrated into the European emission trading system. Currently, we are working on implementing low and zero emissions requirements domestically across various sectors, including offshore, ferries, as I mentioned, and aquaculture vessels. And also, as we mentioned on the incentives front, we provide subsidies for research and innovation. I think that is mostly important, and for infrastructure development and compensation for the additional costs associated with the adoption of green solution, just because of the pricing. Additionally, we offer favorable loans condition for companies wishing to finance zero emissions ships through our National Export Credit Agency. So that's some of the measures that we are doing to stimulate the transition.
So the questions in Slido were very much about particular fuels. A lot of them were asking our panelists to sort of put their money on, ammonia or green hydrogen. And I think the way they answered is much more about the ecosystem, how to drive the innovation, how to emphasize collaboration and cooperation. Unless anybody wants to pick a fuel right now, I have a more difficult question for you. We want to collaborate, but it strikes me that in the maritime sector, there are so many different kinds of players. In terms of ports, there are the primary, more global ports, the hubs. There are more the regional and the national ports. And then similarly, among the industry, there are really the global carriers and some of the local. And each of these face different challenges of funding, of technology. How do we get collaboration? How do we try to make sure that the ports named in the earlier slide about the green digital, that these, as they move ahead, will pull along the others, or even incentives that the State Secretary mentioned? Those are more national at the level. So basically, how do the leading ports, shipping companies, try to really pull the whole sector along, rather than sort of running ahead and leaving everyone behind? How do we do that?
One thing is clear: we can only work together if we want to achieve our climate goals, and we have to involve the private sector, all the private stakeholders, all the representatives of ports, of the different parts of the maritime ecosystem, and I think everybody has to feel responsible to achieve these goals, and we also need, and this is maybe one of the biggest challenges, we need an ambitious timeline and a regulatory framework at IMO for decarbonization that is ambitious. Otherwise, we will not be ready in 2050, and this can only work if everybody feels responsible, and if everyone is included in this ambitious project. But one thing's clear: without international rules, we will not see enough progress. Cannot be a national solution, because decarbonization cannot. We cannot get decarbonization for free. One of the questions I saw on the screen is, are consumers ready to pay for it? I mean, it's in the interest of consumers that we achieve our climate goals, because otherwise the costs for them will even be higher. And this is why we all should feel responsible to give us international rules that the one who is in advance of decarbonization does not suffer from a loss of competitiveness. So we need a level playing field, and we need to feel all responsible for the same goal. And for consumers, it will be cheaper if we achieve our goals than if we miss them.
You mean cheaper in the long term, in terms of having to deal with the threats of climate change, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, if we are decarbonizing in an intelligent way, it will not have a negative impact on our economies. Yes. If we miss time or lose time and miss our goals, it will be imperative that we advance in a very short time, and then the impact on the economies is much higher, and due to this, the costs will increase for consumers. This is why we should now use the time left until 2050.
Please.
Yes, as I mentioned, I think collaboration at the global level, particularly through organizations like the International Maritime Organization, is essential for establishing common regulation and standards. And by working together within the framework of IMO, governments and industry can harmonize policies, promote innovation, and drive collectively actions towards the digitalization and decarbonization of the maritime industry. And also enabling all countries to take part, because we have to do this journey together, and to take part in the transition to climate neutral economy is vital. Norway already supports several relevant initiatives in the IMO, including the project Green Voyage 2050. And we are also happy to see other donors contributing to this and other important projects.
Well, thank you. I want to move on to resilience, but may I just put a pause to the discussion on digital and green. Many of the questions focus on this because I think it's a very sort of pressing issue, a relatively new issue. If we were on a similar panel perhaps a decade ago, probably the most answers would have been, what's it got to do with us, or it's mainly about problems. And I think we are in a search for globally a solution. So I've taken from the panelists about digital and decarbonization is first, they really twin to seek efficiencies rather than just simply more hurdles, more costs. The second seems to be that collaboration, getting everyone on board, but on an ambitious plan, as Minister Weissing has said. And this is critical. And so I think we are looking still very much at a few countries, a few ports leading, but needing to bring everyone in through the IMO, which is emphasized by many of you, and other international organizations. But if I may, in the time we have left, move to some of the questions we have on resilience. We can come back to decarbonization and digitalization if you want, but resilience too has a number of question marks and points. Before we get into today's questions of resilience, may I go back a bit to broader questions? about general security concerns of the shipping corridors, the throughput of containers, etc., the speed and efficiency we need. Sometimes it seems to be in tension with the need to guard against shipping of sanctioned or other illegal equipment. How do we sort of square the circle? How do we balance these two needs? Would anyone like to respond to this? So my version of the question that's here about supply chain resilience and efficiency with good security arrangements. How do we achieve this given the present pressures?
Shall I?
Or would you like to start, Secretary General?
Yeah. It's a very, very important subject, and the examples you mentioned there is very tangible. They're very concrete groundings and blocking of the Suez Canal, etc. But we have discussed digitalization the whole morning here, and it is the key to success, I think, digitalization, and we are all engaged in that. But we must not forget that unmanned and digitalized and artificial intelligence makes us extremely vulnerable. And that is something that concerns IALA a lot, especially when it comes to shipping, because we have seen many spoofings, jammings, cyber attacks on ships and the maritime industry. And if we remove seafarers and we rely on digital solutions and artificial intelligence, we become very, very vulnerable. And we have talked about that for years and years and years in IALA. Especially it's the position, navigation and timing. The global satellite systems, etc., are extremely vulnerable. They are all on the same frequency and they're very, very easy to jam and spoof.
But they're extremely... maybe a bit closer. Like
the global satellite system like GPS, Chinese Baidu, etc., they are very, very vulnerable because they are all on the same frequency, very, very low power and easy to jam and spoof. And if you have no man on board or very few people on board, you are completely lost if you lose the GPS signal. And I've heard about some of our colleagues from other countries that they have lost GPS in the whole country for 10-15 minutes. Some neighbors are testing systems and so on. So this is something we work a lot on in IALA, and we have some solutions ready. R mode, VDSR mode. Many solutions can be developed fast in the future. And we hope also that the governments will now wake up a little bit and see that this is a very, very dangerous situation.
So in the move to linking up digitally, make the systems more open, there has been some concern about vulnerabilities. Minister, would you like to add on?
I would like to add something regarding cyber attacks.
Yes.
I think we should be aware that cyber attacks will increase enormously due to AI, because AI makes cyber attacks much easier and much faster. That means that we have to focus on the whole transport sector and all our infrastructures, that we will need more and also more international cooperation on the cybersecurity. I think that it will be very important to analyze all the cyber attacks, to share the experiences, and this is the best way to organize prevention.
Mr. Secretary?
No, I agree with Germany here, and also you need international collaboration on this to see how you can make resilient systems, so that you don't, for example, by cyber attacks, stops the supply chain within this industry. But also you have to work with the laws and the frameworks and how you're going to regulate this journey in the digitalization of the maritime sector. And also I think, for example, you have to collaborate with the industry to see how you can develop good systems for making this possible.
And trying to set standards for this system. that will allow cybersecurity together with the linkages. Who do we look to get this organized? Each country by themselves? Or are we going to put more on the IMO's very full agenda? And where would we look to? I mean, in the earlier discussion about decarbonization, there was clearly reference to international cooperation and IMO. Would we look to this area too, digitalization and cybersecurity, to international bodies?
Yeah, sure. I think digitalization of the maritime sector needs international cooperation because everything needs to be interoperable. So a national approach to digitalization on international transport sector does not make a lot of sense. So we need international approach, and IMO certainly plays a key role also on this.
Would anyone like to add any other points about resilience as a whole? If not, we've got about 15 minutes left. And I thought I wanted to give us a chance to something a little bit broader. We're very lucky to have you come all the way to Singapore for this panel and this conference, the week. But I wanted, in a sense, your view about our part of the world. Asia growing dynamically, intra-Asian trade, trade of all types, whether manufactured goods, inputs into manufacturing chains, fuels. We see so much traffic in this part of the world, so much growth. What would you counsel us are some of the things you're looking at in terms of these challenges of resilience, digitalization, and of course, decarbonization? Do you think Asia, this region, is doing enough plugged in that collaboration you're talking about? Maybe I could start with the Secretary General in terms of the what's happening, your view of Asia.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is doing enough, actually, because we have talked about this spoofing and jamming of GPS or any satellite navigation system for years and years and years, and only very, very few countries are actually doing something about it. I can mention that Korea is investing a lot in this area, and India as well. But the rest of the world is really not, have not started to invest in resilient and alternative systems to GPS, Beidou, and these things. And there are alternative, not very costly systems that we have developed in IALA and together with our membership and in the committees. So I think not very few countries are, in my view, investing enough in this resilient systems.
Secretary, would you like to have a comment?
There are big challenges to be solved, and I think by fostering partnerships and information sharing among the stakeholders, as mentioned before, we can proactively address challenges and strengthen the resilience of global trade networks. It's no easy way here, but you need to cooperate and you need to have partnerships with the government and the industries to find solutions so that you can be more resilient to, for example, cyber attacks. But that is only one part of the problems in the supply chain. But cooperation is the key word here to how we can solve this in the future.
I think the actual events, they have clearly demonstrated that transport logistics and transport personnel are systemically relevant. And you know, I came here to this Singapore Maritime Week because I think we should now strengthen international cooperation. I mean, these situations, all these challenges, geopolitical problems, and so on. All these events, they show us that if we do not act internationally and act fast, then we will take a risk for our societies. And this is why we can never do enough. We can never cooperate enough together. But actually, the situation is so difficult that only a strong international cooperation can help us to guarantee resilient supply chains. And this is why these conferences and these international dialogues, such as the Singapore Maritime Week, are so important. And if you ask if the region is doing enough, I think the region is doing a lot. Singapore is doing a lot. I had a very good meeting with Minister Chee Hong Tat, and it's impressive to see what's going on in Singapore. And I think it is important that we strengthen the cooperation. We analyze the actual situation, learn from it, and for future challenges, being even better prepared.
Please, Secretary General.
Just a small remark, Minister. I completely agree, but we have tried to establish a cyber attack information sharing center, and it seems like people are not very open when it comes to attacks, cyber attacks. They are not prepared to share their information actually, because either they are confidential, they do not want to tell who attacked them, or it's a company secret that they do not want to share the information. So that's a challenge. We need to be more open about what we see and discover, so that we can actually learn from each other.
Yes, I think that's true. I think in many cybersecurity scenarios, it's more, they don't see it as an area of cooperation. They are very sensitive about who's attacking them, how those attacks take place, and also how they try to, sort of alleviate or defend themselves against those attacks. So that's an area where perhaps internationally people will need to pay attention to. Say, Secretary, you wanted to say.
I think one key word here when we're discussing this is preparedness, and that is, in Norway, we're very focused on the preparedness. And as I mentioned, we must realize that we cannot solve this issue on our own. And that's why it's also important for the Norwegian government to work towards promoting open markets and rule-based international trading systems. But also, preparedness, it comes at a cost. And the government in Norway provides annual grants to the Norwegian ship owners associations to ensure the best possible preparedness and handling of potential crisis situations. And I think this cooperation is very important to handle. If you have situations that are coming up, then you can handle it, but also in doing the preparedness and minimizing the risks for accidents, and I think that's very important.
So resilience goes back to the way to forecasting, planning, preparing different scenarios and how to respond. There's a few minutes left, and one of the underlying questions that's appeared in Slido is about cost. We are very lucky to have 3 government and IO panelists, but in a sense, they're a little bit removed from the ship owners and operators constantly concerned about costs. As a consumer myself, I appreciate how really low cost getting goods across the world is. Singapore is a huge believer in open, free trade. My family loves ordering stuff online and getting it the next day if possible. But the industry, it seems to me, has various challenges. Huge amounts of investment, ups and downs on rates, lots of the problems we've talked about, my minister talked about, and now the decarbonization challenge. Fuels represent, you're better at this than I am, 60, 70% of the costs. If I could ask you in these last few minutes, your view about likely costs for resilient, sustainable, digital shipping in 3 years' time. Up, down, what factor are you looking at to move that needle up or down? Is that a fair question or too hard a one? Secretary General, you talk about 20 or 38%, I think.
Yeah, you can. Well, I worked with ship owners and shipping almost all my life, and I think that ship owners are driven by either business case or regulation. So if you cannot prove there's a good business case, you have to regulate, and that's Mr. Dominguez's area to make regulation. But I think when it comes to greenhouse gas, it has become a good business case, actually, to decarbonize. And that's a fantastic situation, I think, because we had a big mass conference in Ayala, and we looked at what is driving the ship owners and the shipping industry, and we saw that it's still the business case. But decarbonization is actually a good business case nowadays, which is fantastic. But what is also driving the ship owners is a shortage of seafarers, which is a main problem in a few years to come. So there's a good incentive to digitalize and get less people on board the ship. And then I have seen also a good trend from ship owners that it's also good to be first mover. So many ship owners, they would like to invest in being seen as a first mover in this area, which is wonderful, I think.
Thank you.
So price will go up, but it will be a good business case in the end.
So price will go up, new business cases, and this is a new way of competing, being better than your competitors. I think that's how I took your points, Secretary General. Say, Secretary, would you like to add?
I think it's some of the same things, but also embracing technological advancements early on can be beneficial for states in terms of attracting investment, job creation, increased competitiveness, and strengthening their overall influence on the international stage. But also touching upon our previous subject, digitalization, as mentioned by Mr. Wissing, can significantly enhance supply chains efficiency by promoting better planning, reducing transit time, and minimizing fuel consumption, and overall lead to cost savings and improved reliability in supply chains operations. Yes.
So in other words, I took it to be that it's not just resilience as a cost, decarbonization as a cost, digitalization as a cost, but really putting them together can actually make a case for more efficient enterprise, lot more per company as well as for the sector as a whole. Yes? But the question you emphasized very early on, all the incentives Norway, your government is giving, is that also needed? Governments will have to help the industry make those shifts?
Yes, but as I mentioned, in Norway, you have several agreements. For example, as we've done with how you can have a loan for ships that reduce greenhouse gas that contributes to the decarbonation. With the framework that we are setting for using ships, for example, for personal transport, like ferries or faster personal transport boats.
So incentives for first movers is very critical, early movers. Yeah.
Yes, you need the government, but you need a cooperation. And also in Norway, we're now working on what we call a climate partnership between the government and the industry, yes, to see how can we cooperate to give the framework that will contribute that we can move forward in for the way for zero emission in the maritime industry. So this is an ongoing, progress at this time.
Thank you very much. Minister, the last word is yours.
I agree with what the Secretary said. I think that we need to incentivize, we need to help on the research sector also to help to finance best practice projects. And I just wanted to say that the digitalization will be much faster in the next years because of AI. AI will change everything on the digital sector. Digitalization will be much easier to implement, and this is why we will see a lot of progress on this sector. And this is, I'm very optimistic due to that, because it will help us to organize supply chains more resiliently, to achieve our goals on the climate action. And the only thing we need to do is to immediately cooperate internationally in the several sectors to guarantee that all these digital systems are interoperable, and then it will help us also to decrease costs. It will be very fruitful investment if we organize it on the right way.
Well, thank you. With that, let me just conclude the panel. The topics really are challenging. As behind me, you can see the whole question of resilience, decarbonization, and digitalization. But I would take some optimism from what the panel dialogue has been about. They do see that we are at a bit of a juncture with not clear answers for everything. But I detect a kind of mood of optimism and the emphasis on the need for truly global cooperation. The Cs do connect the sector, the consumers behind the sector, the governments and the countries. The Cs also face these issues, how the maritime sector can really respond in a challenging time. And I think the panel dialogue, together, my minister's opening keynote, has really given us reasons for not just optimism, but really activism, to get things moving, to be some of the early adopters of some of the competitive changes that will come to the maritime sector in the coming years. Please join me in thanking our panelists for taking the time to share their views with us.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite the panelists and our moderator, Minister, SecGen, and Prof. T, to kindly remain on stage for a group photo, please. Thank you so much for that insightful and engaging discussion. I'm sure we will be discussing that during tea break as well. Big smiles for our photographers down the center. Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much. Ministers, SecGen, and Prof. T, I'd like to invite you back to your seats, please, whenever you're ready. Oh, a selfie. Always time for a selfie. Fantastic. Beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone.